Hello everyone, welcome to Power BI Dataflow playlist once again. So guys, in this video, we will learn about how to set up incremental refresh policies over the Dataflow. And in addition to that, we will talk about how incremental refresh policies over the Dataflow are different from the incremental refresh policies over the datasets in Power BI desktop. So enough talking guys, let's head over to my Power BI service quickly. So I am in the Power BI service now and I have logged in with my credential, and this is what the workspace that I am in. And this is what the data flow guys that we created in our earlier session. Okay, so the agenda of this session is to implement the incremental refresh policies over this data flow. Okay, so but before setting up the incremental refresh policies guys, let's try to understand what is the need of incremental refresh, and when to use that, or what happens when we actually implement the incremental refresh policies in the backend. Okay, so let's try to understand that. So just to make you understand about this, guys, I will take an example of a report. So let's say we have a report, and in that report we have couple of dimension table and couple of fact table. Okay, so if I just talk about the dimension table generally doesn't holds very high volume of data, or I would say they will be lesser in size. Okay, but other side, if I just talk about the fact table, generally they will be bigger in size because they holds the transactional level information. Okay, so what problem maker to the report because of high volume of data, right? So our report may be slower, or report may take longer time to get refreshed. Okay, so these are the problems which may occur. So to overcome these problem, what is the solution? Okay, so the solution is incremental refresh. Okay, so we can make use of incremental refresh and we can overcome this problem. Okay, but and this is one of the use case. Okay, but what will happen when we actually do the incremental refresh? Okay, so guys, whenever we implement the incremental refreshes, what happens in the backend? The partition gets created. Okay, so there will be a partition for the data that will be refreshed every time, and there will be other partitions for the data that does not need to be refreshed every time. Okay, so this is what will happen when we actually implement the incremental refresh. Okay, and that's all about the theory part. Now let's try to set up the incremental refresh over the data flow, and this is what our agenda, right? So I'm gonna go on into this, data flow, and initially let's see what all the entities which are part of this data flow. So as you can see here, we have a couple of dimension table and we have couple of fact tables as well, right? And on top of this fact table, I wanted to implement the incremental refresh policy. So to implement that, we need to go to the action, and in the action we have this icon available, which is basically for the incremental refresh. You can see in the tooltip as well. So let's hit on this. The moment you hit on this, you can see here there is a dialog box gets open for us, right? And which is basically for setting up the incremental refresh. Okay, so initially we need to turn on this toggle button because I wanted to implement the incremental refresh policy over this table. And the second part is area is for defining the watermark value. Okay, so watermark value, which is basically for identification of new records and the modified record. So that column should be type of the time, okay, when we are implementing the incremental refresh. So we have that column available already in our data set, which is nothing but the order date. Okay, so this is your column. Based on that, the identification of the record will happen. Okay, so that we set up now, and let's move ahead to the another setting. So this setting and this setting. Okay, so these are the two settings which is basically for the partitions. Okay, so the first setting is basically for the partition uh, uh, which will hold the historical information. Okay, so let's say in the report how much data we wanted to store as historical information, so we can set up um, this here. Okay, so for an example, in my report I just wanted to hold 2 year of data. I want to keep 2 year of data as historical information, right? So we need to select the range as well. So we have the range days, month, quarter, and year. So I'm going to go and click on year because I just wanted to hold to year of data. Okay. Now, this setting is for the data, or this is basically for the partition of the data that will refresh every time. Okay, every time means whenever the report gets refreshes, that partition will refresh. Okay, so that we need to set up. So, in my report, on top of this table, I want 30 days of data that need to be refreshed every time. Okay, so 30, and we need to select the range. So this is how we set up the the partitions value here. Now, we have couple of check boxes available. The detect data changes, only refresh complete days. Okay, so if I just talk about this detect data changes, this is just to make sure that our incremental refresh happens whenever any changes comes to this particular column. Okay, so whenever any changes come to this order date, any modification happen to this order date, our incremental refreshes should happen. Okay, now if I just talk about this next checkbox, only refresh complete day, so this is just to make sure that our incremental refresh happens for the complete dates only. Okay, so in the real time, guys, what can happen? There might be a report that refreshes multiple times in a day, right? So that day is not actually the completed day of for that report. Okay, so so uh, so just to make sure our refreshes, incremental refresh will happen for complete days or completed days, so we need to check on this one. Now the only thing we need to do here, click on save. The moment we hit on save, our setting will happen in the background. Okay, so let's hit on save. Now you can look at here, the save changes are getting saved, and we need to refresh now this particular data flow, right? So when we refresh this data flow initially, what will happen to this table? Entire data will be loaded. Okay, last 2 year data, and whatever the data is there, that will be loaded initially fully in the initial refresh. Okay, and after that, from the next refresh onwards, only 30 days of data will get refreshed every time. Okay, so that's how your incremental refresh will work, and that's how we actually set up the incremental refresh over the data flow. Okay, now let's get back to the final topic, and that topic is basically for differentiating the setup that we do with the data flow and the data set. So I have already showcased you like how to do this setup for the data flow, right? But how to do this setup in the data set, and how it is different, actually not doing it, is how it is different from the uh, data set incremental refresh policy. Okay, so I'm going to the Power BI desktop quickly, and we have the couple of tables available in the data model here, and we have the fact internet sales available here too. And the moment we right click on this, and we have an option called incremental refresh. So the moment I click on this one, uh, as you can see here on the top in yellow color, that we are getting a warning, and it is saying before you can set up the incremental refresh on this table, you need to set up the parameter. Okay, so this is something which is additionally we has to do if we wanted to set up the incremental refresh over the dataset in Power BI desktop. The parameter you need to set up. Okay, and this kind of setting we are not performing in the data flow, right? So it is not asking us to set up any kind of parameter here, right? So we are directly going to the table and turning on the incremental refresh on this, and we are after that we are doing all those setting. Okay, so that parameter thing we are not doing at all in the data flow, but we are doing when we are setting the similar concept on top of the data sets in Power BI desktop. So with that said, guys, let's get back to the PPT. So that's it, guys, for this video. If you really like this video, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.